I would like to thank the Ixchel Museum for their invitation. This museum is in Guatemala City and will serve as the backdrop for my presentation today, titled Symbolism and Maya Attires and Weavings of Guatemala. Let's begin by asking, what does it mean to sew? Or tikoj, in the context of the Maya textile tradition. In the Chichicastenango language, tikoj means to sew plants or the first threads of a strip of brocaded designs. What is brocading? Brocading means inserting the horizontal threads of the supplementary wefts when weaving on a backstrap loom. The term sop referred to planting trees during the Classic period, which dates from 250 CE to 950 CE. Back then, the stone stelae symbolized trees as part of the cosmic landscape they recreated. In the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiché, it is said that the ancient word is sown. In the image to the left, we see a representation of the goddess Ixchel, the Lady of the White Complexion, or Rainbow Lady, as some interpret it. What is she doing? She is weaving on a backstrap loom, tensing the vertical threads or warp, which are tied to a tree of life. On her head, she wears a serpent. This image was painted in a codex in 14th century Yucatan. If we move to the present day, we have a photograph of a woman who is sewing the threads in a strip of designs as she's brocading them on a backstrap loom. We will now go to the municipality of Patzún, where we see another technique being used: hand embroidery. In this image, we see only a detail of a paya or ceremonial veil from the cofradia, from Patzún, one of many that still exists today. This paya of a cofradia from Patzún in the department of Chimaltenango, which is predominantly Cachiquel speaking, dates back approximately to the 1970s. Look at these semicircles. They represent the 9 months of gestation. Although we can only see 7 here, because this is just a partial detail. Below, we have these kinds of semicircles. I interpret them as representing flowers, pacaya leaves, or flowers that are offered in ceremonies. At the center, we see the host or blessed sacrament, which is part of a legend about the recovery of the host. Below the host, we see 2 deer, flanked by 2 jaguars or tigers, which are animals associated with the underworld since pre-Hispanic times. Now let's look at another detail from different paya from Patzún, also from the 1970s. Notice the brightly colored semicircles, which may represent pacaya leaves, as mentioned earlier. There are animals above, which I haven't identified: the host or blessed sacrament, and below a pink double-headed eagle. The double-headed eagle, as you may know, was brought to Guatemala by the Spaniards and represented the Habsburg Empire, the king, the emperor, who could see in all directions because he wielded so much power. And this symbol, which can be seen in other garments from the Maya attire, is associated with the power held by the cofradias. Next, we see 2 deer. Deer have been associated with hunting offerings that have been part of Maya cosmogony since pre-Hispanic times. And as mentioned before, 2 jaguars flanked the design. If you would like to learn more about this legend, you can visit the Ixchel Museum Library and consult the study carried out by López Batzín in 1991. Which is an important documentation of that legend based on stories told by the ancestors. It is well worth reading and understanding. Now let's travel to another municipality. We're going to Tactic, located in Alta Verapaz, where Pocomchi is the predominant language. The huipil you see on the left is made with 3 cloth panels that are woven on a backstrap loom. Notice this strip of designs. This huipil is cataloged as P71, Plocharski 71. And it's a very old and valuable piece from the collection of the Ixchel Museum of Indigenous Dress. Next to it is the enlarged detail of a small bird, which is on the upper part, and below we can see a tobacco or corn plant. Once again, we need to refer to a very old legend, told by the Quechua people of Alta Verapaz and documented by Edwin Düsseldorf in approximately 1930 or 1940. If you would like to read and learn more about this legend, known as the Legend of Ixbalanque, or Lord Sun, or the Tsunun or Hummingbird, which we saw on the upper part of the strip of designs, of Lady Po, or the Moon from Cavan, Alta Verapaz, and the tobacco plant, you can read a book that was published by the Ixchel Museum many years ago. It's sold out at the store, but you can read it in the museum library. It is a very beautiful story about Lord Tzultaka, or the god of mountains and valleys, who had a daughter, Lady Po, who fell in love with the Lord's son. But the father did not approve of the relationship. He tricked the lovers. The young man fell in the trap and was discovered by the father. So to honor her beloved, she wove a hummingbird or tsunun onto the huipil. We'll now go to another municipality, Nebaj. Look at this beautiful huipil from around 1960s. This is an antique. And this one is also from the Plocharski collection, cataloged as P21. As you can see, the collar has 4 semicircular elements that represent the 4 cardinal points. But what I especially need you to know is that there is a woman, a doll, that we can identify as such of her skirt. A tsunun, or bird, or hummingbird, a donkey, and a man or young man that we can identify because of his pants. And over there is a corn plant. So, to look at more details, let's examine the scan I took from one of the calendars published by the Ixchel Museum a few years ago, where you can see the young couple. The man and the woman who ran away with perhaps a suit in their hands. A bird on their left, which is not a sunun, because the sunun is over here. This is the sunun, or hummingbird. This is the woman, the man, the donkey, and the woman, and the tsunun who are on the donkey. Why? Because the legend, if we can summarize it as follows, is believed to narrate the story of a king who had a daughter, a beautiful princess who fell in love with a young man of a lower lineage, and of whom her father disapproved. The father sent 2 animal spies. One was a flea, which he put on the princess' left ear without her noticing, and whose task was to inform him of everything the lovers did. When the couple noticed, they killed the flea. So, the king sought out a sunun, or hummingbird, as the second spy. But when the hummingbird saw the love that the young couple had for each other, he became their Nahual, or protective spirit, and accompanied them as they fled on the donkey. To carry everything they needed to run away together, they used a cloth, or sut. This beautiful love story had been practically lost in Nebaj, especially due to the armed conflict that took place in Guatemala from 1960 to 1996. If we want to look at more details of this legend's characters, here we have a man, or a male doll, with his trousers. We have the beautiful tsunun. We have the donkey with another element, which could be a bundle. I don't know. But we do have a tsunun, and we have a female doll. And if you would like to see more details, to learn more about this legend, you can read a brochure or book published by artists David Ordóñez and Arturo Paz, probably in the 1970s during their field trips to Nebaj. Now, we will move to another municipality, Concepción Chiquirichapa, which is in the department of Quetzaltenango, and where Mam is the predominantly spoken language. Look at these gorgeous birds brocaded with supplementary wefts on the backstrap loom. If we wanted to go a bit further, we could think that these beautiful birds are influenced by Mexican weavings or huipiles. But that's not today's topic. Here, we can see more details of this lovely napkin that has geometric design in the center and has birds on the upper and lower parts. As I mentioned, this napkin was woven on a backstrap loop. What I find most interesting is what we find during a field trip we took around 2011. As we were in a store buying this napkin, the woman who sold it to us excitedly told us a beautiful story. Before she began, she explained that this is a story told by her ancestors. They say that the quetzal's attire is its feathers, and its attire was very pretty. Another bird liked it and said, "Let me borrow your beautiful clothes. Only I will wear them. I will fly over there and you will see how pretty they are. Aren't they beautiful?" And it flew away wearing the other bird's clothes. So the other bird was very sad because its clothes, its feathers, were stolen. The quetzal is the one that flew away. And why? Because the quetzal is our national bird, she told us. That means the quetzal stole the feathers from the other bird, which is called the lazy bird. And so the bird got very sad. And that's why it cries. It's a bird that sings a very sad song. The other bird, the one that sings the sad song, is the lazy bird. When they hear it sing, the other one got very sad because its plumage was stolen. Now, let's go to the municipality of Santo Domingo, located in Zacatepeques, where the predominant language is Cachiquel. On the left, we have a symbol. It's a cow or huaquish, which is a loan word in Cachiquel derived from the Spanish term vaca. This symbol was woven on the backstrap loom. How do I know it's a cow? Because it was identified by an elderly woman from the cofradia. called texel. Notice that there's an M above it. I couldn't find out its meaning. Next to it is a zoomorphic figure that I haven't been able to identify. However, if you'd like to understand how this piece appears, we see that it has birds on the upper part. Then, it has these elements shaped like the number 4 that represent kotzig, or flowers in Cachiquel. Then, there's a zigzag shape. The stripe below represents flower vases, and underneath we see the cow, or wakish, and the other unidentified zoomorphic elements, or animals. As I mentioned, this is a cloth. You can see the strings used to tie it to carry a small display case holding the image of a saint from one of the cofradías during the festivities celebrated on August 4th, in honor of Santo Domingo patron saint. We'll now travel to another municipality, and here we can appreciate the use of the hand embroidery technique. We are talking about San Andrés Xecul. Notice the collar. The collar with golden yellow threads is embroidered on a square collar in triangular form. A collaborator told us years ago, and it's something we included in the book Embroidery, Stitches That Unite Cultures, which was published by the Ixchel Museum and sold out, but that you can consult at the museum's library. That those triangles represent the Maya calendar. Why? We asked him, and he told us that keeping track of time was very important to the Maya of the past, and that it still is for the Maya of the present. Notice that it is encircled by animals, such as birds, peacocks. Peacocks were brought to Guatemala by the Spaniards, jaguars, and next to it you see the photograph of another huipil from San Andrés Xecul, which is also hand embroidered, but it is much older, perhaps from the 1940s. It was exhibited at the Ixchel Museum, and it's part of the collection. It was also published in the book Embroidery, Stitches That Unite Cultures. It was a perfect symmetry. Notice it has a perpendicular form, that is, a cross is formed and the triangles, which represent the Maya calendar, stand out on the color, which in this case is round. It's surrounded by beautiful flowers, peacocks, jaguars, butterflies, and there's even a horse somewhere. Now, we're going to Santiago Atitlan, where the predominant language is Sutujil. Santiago Atitlan is a community that has combined backstrap loom weaving with hand embroidery for several decades. Since the early 20th century. Here we have an example of a cloth panel that was first woven on a backstrap loom. It forms squares like the ones seen on the everyday huipiles from Santiago Atitlan, and it has hand embroidery in brown tones, which is what was fashionable a few years ago when this small cloth panel or glyph sampler was acquired. We asked the person who embroidered it why the glyphs, and they explained that it was simply because they were a connection to their ancestors. But you should also note that this has been made a trend in Santiago Atitlan for quite some time. And we can also appreciate it on the sashes made with beadwork in the same municipality. We will now go to Santa Apolonia in Chimaltenango, where the predominant language is Cachiquel. These designs that you may identify as geometric have been beautifully hand embroidered, but using the false brocading technique. Why? Because the cloth is woven first on the backstrap loom, and after that it's hand embroidered, imitating the supplementary weft brocades. Weavers in this community identify the shape as hand embroidered jugs or shara. Now, let's move to San Lucas Toliman, where the predominant languages are Cachiquel and Sutujil. And here we have these geometric designs that are and were identified by a weaver who knew the local tradition designs and recognized them as small jugs or shara, which is a loan word derived from the Spanish term jarras. Remember that in the past, women used to carry water in clay jugs. Now we're going to Nahualá, where we see the sash worn by the men. Notice that the background color is blue with magenta warp stripes. Look at the designs. They feature the serpent Kumatzin, but they are women's sashes. Now the image appears vertically, so that you can observe the designs on the kumatzines, which are the ones with those little squares forming a zigzag shape that are characteristic of the woman's sashes. However, the men's sashes from Nahualá feature a two-headed eagle or kot pakikot, which is also the eagle that is looking forward and back, the eagle that sees good and evil, the eagle of duality, etc. It's made using the colors that identified Nahualá. This sash was woven on a backstrap loom. Now we're going to Chichicastenango, where Rodas y Rodas published a very important book in 1938. And in that book, Rodas y Rodas conducted a study with the people who lived in Chichicastenango at the time. And they told him that the warp stripes, or the black and white vertical stripes, and the flowers are associated in Chichicastenango with female fertility. It is a sash that was embroidered and woven in the 1970s. It's also an antique. Let's now look at an image from one of the cards made by the weavers from Santa Catarina, Palopo, in Sololá. This represents chumil. Chumil is associated with the stars in the sky, but also with the fact that indigenous people from many communities have their chumilaj, their life's mission. Like for weavers, their mission is achieving perfection in their craft. We're now going to Chichicastenango. This is a huipil probably from the 1980s. It's made with 3 cloth panels woven in brown cotton, probably of commercial origin. On the collar, that application represents the sun. It's missing 4 rosettes, one here, another one here, another one here, and one on the back, which represent, according to Rodas y Rodas, the 4 faces of the moon. Notice that it has a 2-headed eagle. It is very difficult to make out, but there's 2 heads. One head and another head. The eagle's body, the eagle's feet, and notice these rhomboid shapes in orange, pink, and green. According to Rodas y Rodas, they represent the chumiles, or the stars associated with the sky. Just like Dr. Iyashel Kohti Ren has also just corroborated in a conference you can consult on YouTube at the Aesthetic Studies Institute in UNAM. She precisely ratified this interesting information with current collaborators regarding the chumiles, or stars associated with the eagle. The eagle is a celestial bird, and the female eagle is considered more powerful than the male, as she documented. Here we have other representations of chumiles, or stars, on a small suit that can be given to lovers. Here is the line of stars and birds. On another suit, we have stars or chumiles, Below and above, we have other birds. This is another detail, so you can observe the chumiles or stars woven on the backstrap loom with supplementary weft brocades, using colors that I refer to as festivals of colors. After that, we're going to a small woven napkin that represents the lion of the richness of Nahualá, which in Quiché is Koh Ukushal Kinomal. Because it owns the jungle, long represents a strong Nahual of goods and richness. It has everything, because it is associated with good luck and it manifests itself in different ways. I got this information from Protege's book, which you can see at the Ixchel Museum's store. And then we have the wild chicken called Rapinel Awaj or Ak. And this is a bird with colorful feathers. Here, it's brown because they used natural brown color to weave on the backstrap loom. But this bird with colorful feathers, known as the wild chicken, and that people in Nahualá consider to be a sign of good fortune, to the point that if one of these birds arrives at a house, people take it as a Nahual or protector spirit of good luck. So they raise it to make sure that luck or fortune accompanies them. In 2009, we did fieldwork in Hoyabaj, Quiché. This 99-year-old man is wearing a red jacket and a hand-embroidered wool, ponchito, and white pants. Here you have another detail of the elderly man. And it was he who told us that the crosses you see on the edges of his jacket represent the Catholic cross. So obviously, he's a Catholic person who was a member of the Cofradia in Hoyabaj. The Cofradia is a Catholic brotherhood. We're going to Todos Santos Cuchumatan, where young women offer their first weaving to Saint Lucia, patron saint of blind people. 12 to 13-year-old girls ask her for their huipil to come out well, and they offer it to her once they finish it. This is also in the field notes that belong to the Ixchel Museum of Indigenous Dress. In Almolonga, during an interview with two people in a store, two young Catholic women told us their aunts taught them to weave when they were 10 years old. They then invited us to their home and showed us the image of the Holy Child of Atocha that appears here. They love it and are very devoted to it. The young woman offered the child her first weaving, which is in its urn and which you can see in the back. Conclusions. The symbolism expressed in the Maya attires and weavings from Guatemala encompasses signifiers or image, and signifies or concepts that can be ancient or of ancestral origin, traditional or modern. Maya indigenous and mestizo Ladino people and others often don't know or aren't interested in knowing about the meaning behind textile signifiers. Ritual specialists, members of cofradias or Catholic brotherhoods and spiritual guides, weavers, embroiders, and weaving artisans often know the meaning behind the signifiers expressed in their textile art, which has been transmitted and brought to life for several generations thanks to the technology they use. Many textile signifiers reflect a personal, community, or generational taste through forms, polychromies, and materials that are woven on backstrap or treadle looms, embroidered by hand or machine, or manufactured industrially or through computerized or sublimation techniques. These are our references. And thank you to all the Maya people who trusted us with their knowledge regarding the symbolism within the Maya garments and weavings of Guatemala.